Okay, everybody, it's me, Gregory Mannarino. What a freaking Monday in the markets today. Stocks got absolutely hammered. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell over 1,000 points. I'm sorry to be laughing here, that little chuckle. But look, again, yeah, it's a big deal that the Dow Jones Industrial Average just peeled off 1,000 points. But people, let me redirect you. Let me redirect you again, please. Okay? The yield curve is collapsing. The yield curve is collapsing. It's inverted and it is collapsing. How many times? I'm going to show you this again. This is the yield curve. See all that red? From the 1 month all the way out to the 30. Okay? See all that red? That's the yield curve collapsing. This is what I've been talking about for the longest time, okay? Let me explain this to you as clear as I can here. Understanding the environment we are in requires a couple of brain cells to function, just a couple. What we have now, we have never seen. This is where no man, where no woman has ever gone before. And there's no other way to put it. Actually, let me back up to the yield curve real quick. Right now, the 30-year hit yet another historic low at about 1.8%. The 1 month is dominating the yield curve except for the 30-year. Now, what do we know? It always comes down to what we know. The Federal Reserve has an inflation target of 2%. So let me ask you, what entity out here would lock up funds for 30 years that is yielding 1.8%? Do you see where I'm going with this? We have a very incredibly unique situation. We have an economy, a U.S. economy, which could not be worse. It's a disaster area waiting to happen. And this is being reflected in a collapsing yield curve. The lies, the propaganda, the fakery, the look here, don't look here, has many people brainwashed. And it's all in an effort to bring in a final solution of the central banks to become the lenders and buyers of last resort. People, mark my words right here and right now. I don't care what Fed presidents or the Fed chair is telling you here. The Fed must, hold on one moment. If the Fed does not drastically cut rates here, this is it. This is the moment that we've all been waiting for. The Fed may be issuing that in. Maybe that's what they actually want. I don't know. Okay? That's the truth. My job is to keep you ahead of this market. That's it. Like I've been doing since for years upon years. I told you Friday, warned you twice that it looked like this market was in trouble. Why? Not because the Dow fell at that point less than 1%, but it was the freaking yield curve. Okay? I told you all I was closing all my positions, getting out of this market. Well, I think that's a big tell for a guy that's been a raging bull here in this market since Donald Trump won. It was a no-brainer at that time, and I mean zero. Other than Mark Cuban, market's going to collapse. Market's going to collapse. What an idiot. Mark! You got that one wrong, dude. And again, he's just pandering. But anyway, let's get back on track here. The situation is grave. We have, a moment in time where world central banks are desperate to issue in their final solution to become the lenders and buyers of last resort. This is why I believe that the Fed is not just going to let this collapse right now. The Fed is going to pump much more debt into this market. The Fed is going to dramatically cut rates. The yield curve is going to continue lower. And the middle class is going to get destroyed. Destroyed here. Now, don't be surprised to see a little bounce in this market here. Nothing goes down or up with regard to the stock market in a linear fashion. It's always a random walk with an upward drift or downward, okay? You and I need to keep our focus here on this collapsing yield curve. You're going to be told, ignore the yield curve. You're going to be told our economy is booming and that we are adding jobs. This is a complete falsehood. What you will also hear is more bailouts for the farmers, for other industries, a redistribution of wealth. That's socialism, okay? You can't know that. You can't know that by the president again calling for a redistribution of wealth, that he's talking about socialism, not a capitalistic society. The president and the Federal Reserve have stripped out the one job of these markets by design. These markets have one job and one only, to determine fair value. When you have central banks around the world working in concert, doing the same thing at the same time, issuing more debt, cutting rates, going negative. You got world leaders calling for negative rates. Donald J. Trump. This is being done for one purpose and one purpose only, to help the central banks bring about their end game. The United States is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, with the most indebted citizens in the history of the world, who now cannot earn a rate of return on their interest accounts anywhere near the actual rate of inflation, and we're getting calls for negative rates. The middle class is being squashed. It has a boot on its throat that is being pushed harder and harder every single day. And yet, where's the noise? Do you hear anything? The silence is deafening. It's because they have been not just dumbed down, but they are fully under control now. They're absolutely brainwashed, and they don't have the brain power to speak out, regardless of what's happening right before their eyeballs. Okay? They're worried about a socialist taking over. Well, again, what do you call it when a sitting president, Donald J. Trump, is talking about a redistribution of wealth? A bell's going off here in your head? What do you call it when you have central banks, none more so than the Federal Reserve, pumping debt into this market like we have never seen before? Let me ask you, and I've covered this multiple times. I explained to you that we are in some kind of a multiple expansion cycle, meaning individuals, investors, are willing to pay more for shares of stock in a company whose earnings are not going anywhere, and in some cases actually dropping. Why is that happening? Why would this phenomenon occur? Well, it's very simple. It goes back to the fact that we are in a suppressed rate environment, which is about to get much worse. Look, there is not a single guy on the earth, you can't find one, who has called the Federal Reserve better than me. All these years, I've been wrong once. I am telling you right here and right now that the Federal Reserve is, in fact, going to cut rates dramatically going forward. Not because they want to collapse here, which is their end game, to destroy the middle class, but because they have not issued enough debt, in my view. They want to max it out to a point where people's minds are going to be absolutely blown. The debt bubble, although it is a financial Frankenstein, is going to get worse. And this is an effort by all the world's central banks to do the same things. They're all going to issue more debt, inflate the debt. They have no choice but to inflate. They have no choice because that's what they want. You understand? Their goal here is to inflate. Their goal here is to bring the middle class to its knees. That's exactly what they are doing. Let me explain this to you a little more clearly. Right now, let's just talk about here in America. United States citizens here are carrying a debt burden unlike they have ever carried in history. We have defaults on auto loans, credit card loans skyrocketing. These same people with an interest earning account cannot earn a rate that will keep up with the actual rate of inflation. The yield curve is collapsing. If in fact this is a moment where this is going to become real, it could not be coming at a worse time. You think that is by accident as well? No, of course it's not. If these people are forced into some kind of a situation of servitude, they are going to beg for a solution moving forward. And of course, one will be offered to them by the government, by the Federal Reserve. Some new system that will benefit them will not benefit the people. The middle class is nearly gone. It is nearly gone. There's no real members of the middle class anymore. A middle class family was able to be supported by one income, live nicely, have some savings, have some investments as well. That's not what's going on here. American citizens are in more debt than they have ever been. Household debt, personal debt, off the Richter scale. By design. Force them to continue borrowing in greater and greater amounts. Make them slaves, debt slaves on an epic scale like our country. The United States now, at face value, I mean, not counting derivatives that are associated with this, 23, 24 trillion in debt. And it's not going to stop. It is not going to stop. And again, going back to the fact that we understand that they're going to continue to inflate here. And I can't imagine that I'm wrong in saying that the Fed is going to cut rates dramatically moving forward and issue a lot more debt here. Where should you be? Where should you be? Well, maybe betting against this debt, becoming your own central bank, holding hard assets, getting out of the dollar, which is a unit of debt. You don't even own them. Those bills that you think are yours, look at what it says on it. Federal Reserve note. It's owed back to the central bank, plus interest that they print out of thin air. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, people, the environment we are in. Let's summarize real quick. Dow Jones Industrial Average got walloped. Stocks fell across the board. The yield curve is collapsing. Let that sink in. The yield curve is collapsing. It's inverted and dropping. This is going to get much worse. You would never see that in a booming economy. The lies are going to get bigger. The blame here is going to be on the coronavirus. They're already talking about the Federal Reserve stepping in here, or the president, the White House today, talking about more capital expenditures to find a cure or a vaccine or whatever it might be to fight the coronavirus. Don't you think this is by design as well? Of course it is. Where's the cash coming from? We don't have it. It's got to come from the Federal Reserve. The Fed's got to print it out of thin air. In this case, add it to a digital screen. Go spend more cash, epic sums of it. It's all by design to help the Fed reach the very, very top of the pyramid and look down on every single one of us that is stupid enough to fall into the debt slavery trap door that is underneath your feet. Most people say they've already went through it and they're hanging and they're choking to death. It's unbelievable. It really is. They don't want the neck broken, okay, because then it's over. They want you hanging there, begging for some type of a solution. Oh, and they're going to offer it to you. Believe me, that's coming next. But not before. Not before rate cuts, multiple. Not before probably negative rates and a massive amount of debt acquisition. This is how they keep that stranglehold on everyone, how they keep people dangling by a noose, okay? I sincerely hope that's not you, although I fear that many of you are in that boat. And I cannot stress to you enough the trouble you're in moving forward. The trouble you are in. You are guaranteed to fall to the lower rung of the extreme two-tier society that is unfolding. Extreme have-nots. Most people will be here. Very, very few are going to be up here. The middle class is going to be a distant memory. It's already there. We're already there. I don't know what else to say here, people. I think I've covered a lot of important things in this video blog. I want you to keep your eyes focused on the collapsing yield curve. Look at what they're going to shove down your throat. What solutions do we have? More debt, more debt, more debt. Because without it, everything around you will change so dramatically you have no idea. I don't think people understand in aggregate what's coming down the pike here. We have an environment that is so fake, it is absolute fantasy land. And we have politicians from the top down that know nothing but lies, that will lie to you and over and over and over again in an attempt to try to convince you that what you're seeing is not real. No. That's not happening. Don't look here. Look over here. You're going to get this. You're going to hear the blame story for more debt. This is what they're setting up here. And I'm convinced now that this coronavirus was deliberately dispersed so they can point the finger. It's not that our economy is in free fall and has been for a very, very long time. The lies and the propaganda. Again, the bigger the lies become, the bigger they get, the more people will buy it. But for you who have followed this blog, you've known exactly where we are. And this yield curve issue is about to get very, very serious. But it's going to get a lot more serious when this debt bubble bursts. We're not there yet. They're not done inflating it. You understand? They are not done. When they are done inflating it, the collapsing yield curve is going to spring the other way, like you have no idea. A meltdown in the debt market is going to occur by design. They're not done pumping it. When they're done pumping the debt market, I don't know when that is, okay? You're going to see a sell-off in the bond market that I think is going to rock the core of the earth. You're going to see a sell-off in the stock market that is going to make today look like a day at Romper Room. And cash is going to simply look for places to go. As the wealth transfer, as the hard-earned cash that has been shoved into this market by whatever's left out there gets legally stolen on an unprecedented scale and simply transferred from the masses right up to the 1%. And then a new system will be introduced. And that's going to be the end. That is going to be it. During this transition here, of course, there's going to be pandemonium in the streets. Absolute pandemonium in the streets. And then what will they do? They will issue in some kind of martial law. Look, this may sound far-fetched, but put this all together. Look at what we've done here. This debt bubble has inflated a population boom. They've risen in tandem, people. When the debt bubble pops, what's going to happen to the population? Global population is going to collapse too, along with it. It's going to be biblical. All right, with that said, I'm out of here. Love you all. Please share the video. I think it's been exceedingly important, and I will see you in the morning.